My perfect teenage daughter ran away from home. I spent years searching for her, and what I found afterwards still haunts me to this day. Lena, my sweet girl, used to hide behind my skirt whenever someone waved hello, and she'd blush at any kissing scene in a cartoon. When she started her freshman year at a public high school in suburban West Chicago, I began to notice changes. She was wearing more makeup, clothes that showed more skin. Whenever I spoke up, she snapped back. "It's my body. I can do what I want with it," she yelled at me during our first major confrontation. Another time, she said matter-of-factly, "All my friends dress like this, Mom." Watching Lena, the child I used to lull to sleep with fairy tales, transform into a rebellious, defiant teenager was heartbreaking. I tried explaining that sexy clothes and heavy lipstick don't define a woman, that she should feel proud of who she is. But she wouldn't listen, and me, wanting to be a free-range parent, convinced myself that this was just a normal teenage phase, not wanting to be a controlling parent. But our relationship grew worse. Arguments turned into fights, and fights turned into conflict. Lena began bringing boys home, some who looked twice her age. I can't even remember all their faces, but once I saw a guy with a neck full of tattoos and the smell of booze hanging around our living room. Then one day, I couldn't take it anymore. While she was at school, I secretly searched her room, hoping to find that silver necklace I thought she'd taken from my keepsake box. In the drawer beside her bed, behind the nightlight, I found a small, clear plastic bag containing white powder. I'd been a college student in Boston. I knew exactly what it was. When Lena came home, we erupted into a furious confrontation. She screamed. I screamed. Our little house felt like it was going to explode from the yelling, the tears, the words you can't take back. The next morning, I knocked on her door to get her ready for school, but the room was empty. 2 suitcases were gone. I called the police. They took notes, asked a few questions, and left. My daughter, the one thing I loved more than anything, was gone. I tore through the neighborhood that day. I checked the alleys behind the train station, the convenience store where she bought soda, even the old docks where she once took photos with friends. No sign of her. I drove around West Garfield Park until my fuel light blinked red, hands shaking on the wheel. No Lena. No one saw anything. No one knew. The police kept repeating, "We'll let you know if we hear anything." But I knew they wouldn't. A missing teenage girl in Chicago is just another number. Every year, hundreds of kids like Lena disappear into this city, and almost none return. Time fast-forwarded my life. I went to work, came home, cooked dinner for Eli, my 12-year-old son, and put on a brave face. But every night I'd cry in the bathroom, eyes glued to my phone, waiting for a message, a call, anything from Lena. But nothing came. 4 years later, when I was about ready to give up hope, an old friend of Lena's sent me an Instagram message. "Ma'am, is this Lena?" Attached was a shaky, fuzzy video clip from a local news story about prostitution on Chicago's South Side. I hit play. In the clip, several women stood on the sidewalk, faces blurred, but their posture, hair, and that faded silver gray coat, I knew immediately it was my daughter. I'd feared everything, drugs, violence, street life, but seeing her on a social issue segment as just a statistic, I was utterly unprepared. I started crying at my desk like a little kid. I didn't care about the stares from coworkers or the company phone ringing off the hook. My daughter was somewhere in this God-forsaken city, living or just surviving, in a way I couldn't bear to imagine. That very evening, I bought a flight to Chicago. I arranged for Eli to stay with his grandmother and took a temporary leave from work. I didn't make a plan, just one goal. Find my daughter. Rescue her from the shadows, if she still wanted saving. The overnight flight from Austin to Chicago was only 3 hours, but I felt 30 years older by the time we touched down. On the plane, I stared out the window, replaying memory after memory. Bedtime stories, bike rides without training wheels, midnight fevers rushed to the ER, her tiny hand clutching my shirt. And now, she might be out there on South Side's filthy streets, wandering among men who pay for company with cash, threatened, controlled, forgotten. I rented a car at the airport and drove straight to the South Side. According to the news story, the video was shot near Halsted Avenue in Inglewood, a neighborhood notorious for the city's highest crime rates. I parked and scanned the area like I'd entered a war zone. The next days became a blur of exhaustion and desperate hope. I walked cracked sidewalks, stopped at gas stations, laundromats, churches, clinics, anywhere she might be. I printed hundreds of flyers with a smiling 14-year-old Lena in a purple floral dress and taped them to lampposts, bus stops, store windows, park benches. I knew she'd changed. Older now, maybe thinner, maybe her hair dyed or shaved off, but I had nothing left to hold on to except old memories. I needed someone, anyone, to see that flyer and recognize, even just a flicker, the eyes of the girl I'd raised all my life. At first, I had a schedule. A few days in, I was running on instinct. I slept in the car, showered at gas stations, ate cold fast food. I didn't dare leave the area for too long, terrified of missing even the slimmest chance. I wandered through vacant lots, abandoned warehouses where people whispered about the pimps' camps. I talked to sex workers, the homeless, laundromat employees, anyone who might have seen Lena. Then, on a gray morning, while I was handing out flyers near a bus stop on 63rd Street, I saw a familiar figure on the corner, a slight limp, slumped shoulders, hair tied back with a rubber band. My heart nearly stopped. I rolled down my window. "Lena!" The girl turned, and in that instant, time froze. It was my daughter. She turned at the sound of her name, her eyes wide and stunned, and then glistening with tears. I jumped out of the car, forgetting to pull the handbrake, and ran into the street. She ran too. We collided in a tearful hug, so tight it felt like I was holding my 5-year-old again, not this gaunt, exhausted, deeply wounded 18-year-old girl. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry," Lena whispered over and over like a lost child finally finding her way home. I held her close. Her scent, her shaky breath against my neck, the cold of her skin, everything was real. Not a dream, not a memory. Lena, the daughter I thought I'd lost forever, was right here in my arms. We got into the car. I didn't speak at first, just reached over to turn on the heater, handed her a tissue and a bottle of water. She took them silently. The tears kept coming, but they weren't frantic anymore. I drove us to a 24/7 diner on the corner of Halsted, small, warm, filled with yellow light and the smell of toast. Somewhere I hoped we could talk, like a normal mother and daughter. Lena ordered a soda but didn't drink it. I got us eggs and waffles. I knew she skipped meals when she was stressed. We sat in silence for nearly 10 minutes. I wanted to ask 100 things. Where have you been? Who had you? How did you survive? But I knew if I pushed too soon, she'd shut down. Instead, I said, "I'm just glad to see you again." She nodded slightly. Her eyes stared into nothing, fingers fidgeting with the napkin like it was the only thing grounding her. The air between us felt heavy, not from silence, but from everything unspoken. I started thinking about how to get her home, to the police, or a shelter. I had to get her out of that life. I'd do whatever it took. But when I grabbed the car keys and stood up, Lena stayed seated. "I can't go home," she said, her voice hoarse. "Someone will hurt me. They're watching. Right now." I glanced around the diner, an elderly couple eating breakfast, a white man in a baseball cap sitting alone in the back booth. He was staring at us. I turned toward him. The man, maybe in his 40s, thin, sharp-jawed, patchy beard, didn't look away when our eyes met. In fact, he smirked, like he was daring me to react. He wore a faded gray hoodie, cradling a cheap styrofoam cup of coffee, but his eyes never left my daughter. Lena trembled. She stared down at the table, hands clenched tight until her knuckles turned white. "He's one of them," she whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. "They know I'm with you. He's watching." I tried to stay calm, but my heart was pounding so loud I was sure others could hear it. "Are you sure?" I asked, reaching for my phone inside my coat. Lena nodded, still not looking up. "If I leave with you, they'll punish me. They already warned me." In that moment, I was no longer just a mother trying to find her daughter. I was a soldier in a war, surrounded by invisible enemies. I swallowed hard. "Listen to me," I said, voice low and steady. "You don't have to face this alone anymore. I'll protect you. We can go now." "No, you don't understand," Lena interrupted, eyes wide with panic now meeting mine. "They're watching. Even when you can't see them, they know. If I go with you, you'll be in danger, and I'll disappear." The man in the cap stood up. I saw him pull out his phone, typing something. Then he walked toward the door, not rushing, but with purpose. My heart was about to burst through my ribs. "We have to go," I pleaded. "I'll call the police. No!" Lena grabbed my hand tightly. "If you call anyone, they'll know. I ran once already and they warned me, next time, there'll be blood. I looked around again. The other patrons were oblivious. Just a mom and daughter having a late breakfast, nothing more. But for me, the world was collapsing again. Stay here, I said quickly. I'm just going to the car to make a call. Don't move, okay? I stepped outside, fumbling for my phone, glancing back through the diner window. Lena was still there, staring at me with eyes like bottomless wells. I had just started dialing the police when something felt off. I turned around. Lena was gone. I rushed back into the diner like my legs had lost all feeling. Our table was empty. The soda still sat there, the napkin crumpled, faint fingernail marks pressed into it. Lena had vanished like she was never there. Like a ghost. I ran to the back door of the diner, shouting her name. Lena, Lena, please stop. No response. I sprinted across the back parking lot. A bitter wind from Lake Michigan slapped my face. At the corner, I spotted a small figure darting into the narrow alley between two red brick buildings. I didn't think. I just chased. Lena! I shouted, voice cracked. You don't have to be afraid. I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you again. She stopped at the end of the alley, turned. Her hair blew wild around her face. She was panting, eyes torn with conflict. I approached slowly. You don't have to run anymore. You're not alone. She shook her head. You don't understand. I opened my arms. I don't have to understand everything. I just need you to know I love you. I've searched for you for 4 years. I'd do it all again if it means bringing you home. She took a step forward, then another, then threw herself into my arms. We clung to each other like the world was breaking apart. Her thin shoulders trembled, her tears soaked through my coat. I'm sorry, I whispered. I wasn't there when you needed me most, but I'm here now. I'm not leaving you again. Lena looked up. I love you. Then, just as suddenly as she appeared, she pulled away. Her eyes changed, alert, terrified. She glanced behind me, then back at me. I have to go. They're close. I've been out too long. I grabbed her hand. No, you don't have to run anymore. I'll call the police. I'll protect you. No one can protect me, she whispered. I have to protect myself. She hugged me fast, like a goodbye. I love you. Then she turned and ran into the dark like something was chasing her. I stood frozen, arms still outstretched, mouth open but no sound coming out. This time, I knew I had found her. And lost her again, right in my arms. I collapsed, head resting against the icy brick wall. My eyes had no more tears, just dizziness, emptiness, and a pain so deep I couldn't even feel it anymore. I didn't go back to Texas. I couldn't. Not after holding Lena in my arms, only to let her slip away again. I couldn't face walking through the front door, past her empty bedroom, looking into Eli's eyes, hearing my mother ask, "Did you find her?" I couldn't bear it. So I stayed in Chicago. I rented a small room near 63rd Street where I last saw Lena. It had a single bed, worn curtains, and a heater that groaned every time it turned on. I lived off savings and the motel's free breakfast, sometimes instant noodles or cold sandwiches from a convenience store. Every morning, I posted new flyers. Every night, I dragged myself back like a ghost. I followed the same route each day: gas station, bus stop, laundromat, church, shelter. I became a familiar face to the homeless in Southside. They started nodding at me. Some called me the flyer mom. Others took a flyer and stuffed it quickly into their pockets like they feared catching my despair. I remembered the first time I saw Lena on that news clip. I remembered how she trembled in my arms. But most of all, I remembered that haunted look in her eyes, like someone being hunted, someone who saw no way out. I kept asking myself, where did I go wrong? Was I too soft? Too strict? I should have loved her differently. I should have seen it sooner. Once, I sat in my car for 3 hours, watching kids hang around under the stairs of an abandoned building. I spotted a girl who walked just like Lena. My heart nearly stopped, but as I got closer, I saw it wasn't her, just another girl, skinny, empty-eyed, but not my daughter. I started keeping a small notebook, tracking every lead, every almost. Some nights, I dreamed of Lena coming home, curled up in my lap, her hair still smelling like sweat and summer sun, like when she was little. Other nights, I dreamed I was running endlessly, seeing only faded backs and eyes that refused to meet mine. I didn't know what I was living for anymore, except for one thing. As long as I could post another flyer, as long as I could walk one more street, Then there was still hope for Lena. Fragile, foolish hope, but hope nonetheless. A mother's hope that refuses to bury her daughter in forgetfulness. I met Kate on a drizzly afternoon at a roadside church converted into a soup kitchen. I wasn't there because I was hungry, I was just tired. So tired I just needed somewhere to sit. Anywhere with a roof and a chair. Kate didn't look like the usual visitors. Her jeans were still clean, hair tied back neatly, beige sneakers only slightly muddy. She held a stack of flyers, just like mine, except hers showed a shy smiling boy, maybe 16, with wide, gentle eyes. "My son Toby," she said when she saw me looking. "He disappeared last year, last seen at the North Bus Terminal." I held out one of my flyers. "My daughter, Lena. I saw her a few weeks ago, but then she ran away again." Kate let out a soft exhale like she'd heard that story 100 times. And maybe she had, or maybe she lived it. We walked together along 63rd Street afterward, like two ghosts with worn eyes and pockets full of paper. Sometimes we didn't speak at all. And strangely, that was the first time I felt comforted. Not because she had advice or hope I lacked, but because she understood. She knew the emptiness in every step. She knew what it was like to wake up each morning to a pain no one else could see. Kate told me about Toby, a boy who loved airplanes, who wanted to be a pilot, who always slept with a green nightlight. After her husband left, Toby grew quiet, made new friends, then dropped out of school, and vanished. "I still keep his room exactly the same," she said. "The light's still on every night, just in case he comes back." I nodded. I kept Lena's desk just the way she left it. We put up flyers together, shared sandwiches from a volunteer group. Once, when two men started arguing loudly in front of us, Kate pulled me into a nearby convenience store and smiled like we were shopping. "You're the first person I've laughed with in 6 months," she said, her eyes pink. That night, we sat in her car, eating cold tacos from a roadside stand. I told her about Eli, how I once called home and he answered by my name, not Mom. About the fear of not knowing whether my daughter was alive or dead. Before we parted, Kate held my hand. "Don't give up, Anna. Even when you feel like you already have, don't." I didn't know why those words made me cry, but I promised. I hadn't planned on calling Eli. I'd opened my phone a dozen times, scrolled to his name, then locked the screen again. Part of me was afraid. Another part, ashamed. I had left him with no warning, no explanation, chasing the faint hope of saving Lena. But one night, when Chicago's skies hung heavy with rain and I couldn't sleep in that frigid room, I dialed. 3 rings, then a voice. Eli's voice, deeper now, distant. "Hello?" I bit my lip, inhaled deeply. "It's Mom, Eli." Silence. Then, "Oh," just one word, light as air, heavy as stone. "Are you okay?" I asked, though I knew I had no right. "I'm fine. Staying with Grandma." "She's taking good care of you?" "Better than you did." I closed my eyes. Every word was a cut. I deserved it. I knew what I'd done, but hearing it from my own son still hurt more than I could bear. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I never meant to leave you. I had to find Lena. You're always looking for Lena," Eli interrupted, voice sharp. "Even when I cried missing her. Even when I got bullied at school. Even when I needed you. You never noticed." I didn't know what to say. All these years, I thought I was a good mom, or at least good enough. But now it was clear, in my obsession to save Lena, I had lost Eli. "Do you miss her?" I asked, clinging to one last thread. He was quiet a long time. "Yes," he said, barely audible. "But I hate her too, because she took you away from me." My tears soaked into my sweater. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Eli. I was wrong." He didn't respond, just a quiet, weary sigh through the line. "Do you want me to come home?" I asked, almost begging. You should stay there, with her, 'cause clearly she's the only one you care about." The cold, mechanical beeping hit my ear. The call ended. I sat frozen in the dark, phone slipping from my hand. In a strange city, in the dead of winter, I realized I hadn't just lost one child. I was losing both. After that, I didn't call Eli again. Not because I was angry, but because I understood. He needed time. And because I knew, no matter how much I explained, the years I left him behind weren't something I could fix with a few phone calls or too late apologies. I stayed in Chicago. Every morning I left the motel before the sun fully rose, stepping into the dense northern winter air. I walked block after block, carrying a small backpack filled with freshly printed flyers. Lena's image was updated now. Shorter hair, thinner frame, a note reading, "Maybe in danger or under duress." I learned how to talk to strangers in brief bursts, how not to annoy them with the paper from a woman who always looked like she was about to cry. I started recognizing faces around the neighborhood. The young woman at the corner cafe who gave me free coffee. The old homeless man at the bus stop who told tall tales. The social workers who just shook their heads gently whenever I asked, "Have you seen this girl?" Sometimes people would say, "I think I saw her once." I clung to those leads like a drowning person grabbing at driftwood. Most of them led nowhere, but still, I thanked them because at least someone was paying attention. I started adding a line at the bottom of every flyer. "You can call me anytime. No judgment. I just need to know you're alive." I didn't know if Lena ever saw one. Maybe she'd already left Chicago. Maybe she wasn't in this world anymore. But deep down, I never let myself believe she was gone. Because if I did, I'd have no reason to keep going. Every night, I kept my phone next to my pillow, notifications on. Just one line. "I'm okay." One anonymous call. One sign. But so far, silence. I'm not a strong woman. I'm not good at enduring pain. But I'm a mother, and mothers don't give up. Lena might not come back tomorrow, or next month, or next year. But as long as I can walk another block, tape up another flyer, she still has a chance. I wouldn't let Lena become just another forgotten name. Not just a face on a street pole that slowly fades. Not another quiet, "I'm sorry" from society. I haven't given up, and I never will. I was sitting in my motel room holding the last flyer from my latest batch when there was a knock at the door. A slow, steady knock. Not the postman, not the motel staff. I opened the door. A police officer stood there, his face solemn, eyes filled with compassion. "Mrs. Anna?" he asked. I nodded, my heart tightening like a fist. "I'm afraid I have bad news. A young woman was brought into the ER this morning. She didn't make it." I didn't hear the rest. Everything blurred. Sound became a dull ringing in my ears. "We found fake identification, but after comparing photos with missing persons databases, we believe it was your daughter, Lena." I had no tears left. My body didn't move, but then the officer pulled out a small, crumpled envelope, stained with a trace of dried blood. "We found this in her coat pocket. It had your name written on it." I took it, hands trembling. On the envelope, scrawled in shaky handwriting, "For Mom, in case I don't make it back." I opened the letter. Her handwriting was still familiar, though crooked and tired. "Mom, I know you're still looking for me. I saw your flyer at the bus stop last week." I cried. I wanted to run to you, but I was scared. Scared you'd look at me with pity. Scared you'd be disappointed. "Mom, I'm not a good kid. I messed up a lot. But you need to know this. Every time I wanted to give up, I thought of you. You're the reason I stayed alive this long. I've been trying to escape. I ran away from them. I was coming back for you. I swear I was on my way home. If I don't make it, don't blame yourself. You did everything. You did more than any mother ever could. You're my hero. I love you. I never stopped loving you. Zrenia, Lena." I collapsed, but not out of despair. Out of forgiveness. The letter in my hands was soaked with tears. But my heart, after so many years, felt just a little lighter. No more tormenting questions. No more haunting images of Lena lost in the dark. I had her words. I had the truth. Lena had tried to come home. And I knew, somehow, she had found her way back. I don't remember exactly what I did after reading the letter. I just remember the officer standing there for a long time, saying nothing, as if waiting for me to remember how to breathe. Finally, he gently placed a business card on the table. "If you'd like to go to the hospital, we can take you to the morgue. There will be a social worker there to support you." I nodded. That was all. No tears, no screaming. Just a nod, like a machine. On the way to the hospital, I remember looking out the window and thinking something strangely peaceful. At least now she wasn't afraid anymore. Lena had lived too long in fear, in darkness, in hiding. Maybe, just maybe, those last moments, lying in a hospital bed with no one watching, no one chasing her, were the only time she ever got to breathe in peace. When I saw Lena's body, I didn't scream or cry. I simply touched her cold hand and whispered, "I'm here." Just 3 words. But they were the last promise I could keep. I didn't have to search anymore. No more flyers, no more chasing shadows, and no more hope. After the quiet funeral, I held for Lena, no family but me, no bright flower arrangements. I returned to the motel, packed my bags, and left Chicago. I went back to Texas, back to Eli. He was taller than I remembered, his voice deeper, his eyes older and guarded. I didn't expect a hug. I didn't expect forgiveness. I just said, "I'm home." And Eli answered, softly, like a nod, "I know." That night, I told Eli everything. About the search, the last time I saw Lena, the letter. I didn't hold anything back. He sat silently for a long time, then turned to me and asked, "Do you still have the letter?" I pulled it out and handed it to him. He read every line, eyes glassy but refusing to let a single tear fall. When he finished, he pulled me into a hug. No words. It wasn't full forgiveness, but it was something else. Recognition. That I'd come back. And that even though his sister was gone, she was still a part of us. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. Not because the pain was gone, but because finally the pain had somewhere to rest.